Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hello there, friends, and welcome back to Daily Dose Radio, the Bible study that is fresh and delicious. As a matter of fact, it is so fresh and delicious that it doesn't have a use-by date on the label. It's good all the time, and it's good for you. This week we are studying Psalm 91, and I said yesterday this is one of the most encouraging psalms you'll probably ever read. We have two voices. We have the voice of the psalmist, and we have the voice of the Lord, and both voices are speaking about a third person. And as we continue now through the psalm, you'll begin to pick up that third person idea. We began yesterday in verse 3. The psalmist is speaking after his grand confession of faith. There in verse 2, he said, I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. Then he begins to describe the blessedness of the man that he mentions in verse 1. Verse 1 is our opening theme. So each of the second and third person singular pronouns refer to the man that's described in verse 1. So like in verse 3, surely He shall deliver thee. Okay, that's a second person pronoun. From the snare of the fowler, from the noisome pestilence, He shall cover thee. Under His wings shalt thou. His truth shall be thy. So you see those second person pronouns. He's talking about or to this man in verse 1 who's found his place in the secret place of the Most High. He dwells there. All right, now today we're going to look at 5 through 7. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. Thou shalt fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Okay, let's go back now and look at these verses. We continue that idea of the second person. He's still talking to this man who's dwelling in the secret place. You shall not be afraid of the terror, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. You'll recall that yesterday I said that he began a list. He had only 2 items on his list yesterday, and those 2 items were the snare and the noisome pestilence. Today we have verse 5, the terror and the arrow. So there's 2 more. So now we have 4. We have the pestilence in verse 6 and destruction in verse 6. So now we have 6. And you'll notice pestilence there is repeated from verse 3. And then we have my favorite of all, number 7, is the it. Notice verse 7. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Why is that my favorite? Because you have to pick which it. Is it the destruction? Is it the pestilence? Is it the arrow? Is it the terror? Well, he doesn't tell us. And the it here is singular, so we know he's talking about one of them, but which one? Well, that's kind of left up to us. It shall not come nigh thee. So, is it the snare, the noisome pestilence, the terror, the arrow, the pestilence, the destruction? It doesn't matter. Pick one. That's why I say this is so encouraging, because every single one of us, if we're trusting in the Lord, we have found ourselves under the snare, or in the snare, and under the hand of pestilence, or in the terror of the night, or the arrow in the day, or the destruction. You know, we've found ourselves in situations that we might describe in these ways. You know, he's not limiting this blessing to any one of those. He says this is what the Lord's going to do in every case. It doesn't matter which case it is. Pick 1, pick 3, pick all 7. Doesn't matter. Now we're going to add to this. There's there's 1, 2, 3, 4 more of these to go. So 11 altogether. Join me tomorrow and we'll pick up in verse 8 and we'll read verses 8 through 10 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.